Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Sometimes you don't set bridges on fire, you simply stop crossing them, and the silence does the burning for you. There's something beautifully terrifying about a Sigma male when he decides he's done. No shouting match, no drama, no grand announcement, just quiet. The kind of quiet that ends empires. Psychologists say that emotionally intelligent people tend to walk away without confrontation because they've already fought the war in their minds. That's the Sigma male's domain, the invisible battlefield where he decides who gets exiled from his mental kingdom. When he burns a bridge, it's not out of anger. It's an audit. He's checking who adds peace, who drains energy, and who mistakes his loyalty for access. And once he's done counting, someone's about to disappear. It's funny. People think he's cold for cutting them off. But in his mind, he's just deleting malware. No emotions, no tears, just a mental clear cache. The bridge doesn't collapse with flames. It quietly dissolves in logic. Today, we're diving deep into how the Sigma male burns bridges and why he doesn't lose sleep over the ashes. Number 1. He feels no guilt for protecting his energy. The Sigma male has mastered something most people never do, the art of guiltless self-preservation. He knows that constantly saying yes, constantly showing up, and constantly rescuing people who refuse to save themselves is the fastest route to emotional bankruptcy. Society trains you to believe that goodness means endurance, that if you're truly kind, you'll tolerate everything and everyone. The Sigma doesn't buy that lie. He's not here to be endlessly available. He's here to stay aligned with his own peace. When he walks away, people often label him as selfish or heartless, but that's because most people confuse boundaries with betrayal. He's not rejecting others. He's rejecting exhaustion. There comes a point when giving stops being noble and starts being self-destructive. The Sigma recognizes that moment with precision. The second his inner balance starts to tilt, when he's drained, disrespected, or used, he detaches without guilt or hesitation. It's not arrogance, it's maintenance. He's learned that guilt is society's leash. It keeps people overextending themselves to prove they're good. The Sigma cut that leash long ago. He doesn't equate being kind with being available. He can care deeply about someone and still refuse to answer their calls when they drain him. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. He also knows that energy is currency. Spend it on the wrong people and you end up broke. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Protecting his energy isn't about isolation. It's about investment. He invests where there's growth, reciprocity, and respect. Everywhere else, he withdraws, and he doesn't apologize for it. While others chase approval, the Sigma guards his equilibrium. He's not afraid of being misunderstood because he knows peace is worth more than validation. Guilt-free detachment is his quiet rebellion against a world that romanticizes self-sacrifice. In the end, he doesn't feel bad for protecting his energy. He feels bad for ever letting anyone drain it in the first place. Number 2. He refuses to stay where his presence becomes expected, not respected. The Sigma male has no interest in being anyone's background character. The moment his effort becomes routine and his presence turns invisible, he quietly leaves. He doesn't crave applause, but he values recognition, not the loud kind, but the quiet acknowledgement that he matters. When people start taking him for granted, when his consistency is mistaken for obligation, he knows the connection has expired. Respect is oxygen to him, and he refuses to suffocate just to keep others comfortable. He's seen how people grow too familiar with what they don't fear losing. They stop saying thank you. They stop listening. They start assuming he'll always be there, always understanding, always available. That's the red flag he never ignores. The Sigma doesn't chase appreciation. He observes patterns. When he notices that his absence would barely be noticed, he chooses to make it permanent. It's not pride, it's principle. He understands that overexposure dulls value. The more often you show up for those who never show up for you, the more they start to believe your loyalty is automatic. But his loyalty isn't free. It's earned and maintained through mutual respect. Once that balance breaks, he retreats without warning. No explanations, no emotional closure, just quiet removal. His silence does the teaching. This isn't about arrogance, it's about protecting self-worth. The Sigma knows that staying where he's underappreciated slowly erases his identity, and he'd rather be alone and respected by himself than surrounded and dismissed by others. The world calls that ego. He calls it emotional hygiene. People often realize too late that he's gone. They start to notice the silence where his steadiness used to be, the void where his energy once filled the room. But by then, he's moved on. Not in anger, but in certainty. Once the Sigma sees that his presence is expected rather than respected, he doesn't negotiate his worth. He just leaves and never looks back. Number 3, he understands that peace requires casualties. The Sigma male knows that true peace is not free. It comes at a cost, and sometimes that cost is people. He doesn't burn bridges out of spite or anger. He does it because maintaining certain relationships threatens his inner calm. Life is messy, and not everyone is meant to travel with him on the path he walks. Some connections are toxic, draining, or simply incompatible with his growth, and he accepts that letting them go is necessary. Casualties are not failures. They are the unavoidable price of preserving clarity and focus. He moves through life like a surgeon with precision, cutting out anything that causes infection. The people who demand constant validation, who manipulate emotions, or who try to pull him into their chaos are not accidents. They are obstacles. Removing them doesn't require explanation or guilt. It is a calculated act of self-preservation. For the Sigma, allowing these connections to linger would be a betrayal of his own well-being. While others fear losing people, the Sigma fears losing himself. He has learned that compromise has limits, and sometimes maintaining relationships comes at the expense of his energy, his purpose, and his sanity. Peace, for him, is sacred, and he refuses to trade it for the comfort of keeping everyone around. Those who cannot contribute to a mutual, respectful dynamic are quietly released. This is not coldness, it is wisdom. He understands that life cannot be all-inclusive. Every person he parts ways with leaves a space for growth, opportunity, and clarity. His mind becomes quieter, his focus sharper, and his energy more potent. The casualties are inevitable, and he does not mourn them because he knows they were never meant to stay. In the Sigma's world, peace is a fortress, and every bridge that threatens its walls must be dismantled. He accepts that some losses are necessary to maintain the sanctity of his inner life. For him, peace is not negotiable, and the cost of maintaining it, however harsh it may seem to outsiders, is always worth paying. Number 4, he doesn't burn bridges out of anger. He burns them to kill access. The Sigma male doesn't set bridges on fire because he's angry or seeking revenge. He burns them to remove access to his time, his energy, his mind, and his life. Anger is temporary, fleeting, and often destructive in ways he doesn't tolerate. What he does tolerate is intrusion, manipulation, and unnecessary drain. When someone proves that their presence is more harmful than helpful, he doesn't negotiate or beg for change. He cuts the connection cleanly, efficiently, and without remorse. This act isn't dramatic or public, it's surgical. The Sigma knows that when a person loses access to him, they also lose influence over his life. There's no need for arguments, confrontations, or explanations. Silence and absence speak louder than words ever could. People might misinterpret it as coldness, but the truth is, he's not interested in the theatrics of human emotions. He's interested in safeguarding his own equilibrium. The Sigma male views relationships as systems, not obligations. Every person who enters his life either contributes or consumes. When the balance tips toward consumption, when trust is broken or boundaries are repeatedly ignored, he acts. Burning the bridge is less about punishment and more about establishing clarity. This is what you lose when you overstep. And unlike anger, which fades, the consequences of losing access are permanent. He doesn't feel compelled to justify his choices to anyone. The Sigma understands that explaining himself is often futile, because those who have abused or disrespected him rarely understand or appreciate honesty. The bridge is burned not to hurt the other person, but to maintain the sanctity of his life and mind. He eliminates the risk of repeated interference, emotional drain, or chaos. In his world, access is privilege, not a right. And once a person proves they cannot respect that, the Sigma male closes the gate quietly and forever. There's no malice in it, no drama, just the undeniable logic of a man who values his peace and refuses to allow anyone to compromise it. Burning bridges, for him, is about control, protection, and survival, not emotion. Number 5, he doesn't believe in second chances, only new auditions. The Sigma male doesn't operate on the idea of second chances. To him, that concept is overrated, sentimental, and often dangerous. Trust is not a river that can be dammed and reopened at will. Once someone has proven themselves unreliable, disrespectful, or draining, the Sigma doesn't simply allow them back into his life under the guise of forgiveness. Instead, he treats any return as a completely new audition, a test of whether the person has truly changed and whether they bring value to his world. He doesn't waste energy on the past. Apologies, explanations, or promises of reform are only relevant if they translate into action. Words alone hold no weight with him. The Sigma evaluates people by behavior, by alignment with his values, and by whether their presence enhances or diminishes his life. If the audition fails, the bridge is gone forever. There's no drama, no long lecture, no guilt trip. He simply moves on, quietly and decisively. This approach is not about arrogance or holding grudges. It's about survival and clarity. The Sigma knows that reopening doors to people who once betrayed his trust can compromise his mental and emotional stability. Each relationship is a finite resource of energy, attention, and focus. Once depleted or misused, it is not recycled without merit. He preserves what remains of his world for those who earn it genuinely, rather than allowing sentimentality to invite chaos back into his life. Returning people to his life is always contingent on merit. They must demonstrate change, respect, and reciprocity. If they fail, the Sigma does not linger in disappointment. He cuts the connection without hesitation, treating it as a lesson for both parties. He doesn't dwell on what went wrong. He observes, learns, and recalibrates. For the Sigma male, life moves forward, and space is precious. There is no luxury for repeated mistakes, unless those mistakes come with undeniable transformation. In his world, relationships are dynamic, but bridges are not permanent. Every person must earn access again, and many fail. That's the quiet power of a Sigma male. He does not forgive lightly, but he always knows exactly why and when someone is allowed to return. Number 6. He burns bridges. Because he understands the power of absence. The Sigma male knows something most people overlook. Absence is far more revealing than presence. When he steps away, it isn't about punishment or drama. It's about creating space for truth to surface. People often show their real colors only when the safety net of his presence is gone. Who notices, who cares, who adapts, and who replaces him, all of that becomes crystal clear when he is simply not there. This is the silent leverage he wields, and he wields it without malice. He doesn't burn bridges to hurt others, he burns them to test reality. The world is full of people who take energy for granted, who rely on consistency without offering anything in return. By removing himself, the Sigma allows the consequences of neglect or overdependence to play out naturally. People either rise to fill the void with respect and understanding, or they reveal that they were never truly invested. His absence acts as a mirror, reflecting the truth of relationships that words often fail to reveal. This understanding also keeps him untethered. When people cling too tightly or try to control him, the Sigma doesn't argue. He simply disappears. Absence isn't weakness, it's armor. It protects his time, his energy, and his sanity. It forces others to confront the reality of their own behavior while he continues on his path unimpeded. He doesn't look back or question his choice, because he knows the power of removing access far outweighs any temporary discomfort it may cause others. He recognizes that most people only value what they think they can always have. Once something becomes scarce, its value skyrockets. By stepping away, he transforms his presence from ordinary to indispensable. He doesn't need validation, he observes. The reactions, the adjustments, the panic, or the indifference, all of it informs him about who truly matters and who doesn't. For the Sigma male, absence is a tool, a shield, and a statement all at once. He burns bridges not to destroy, but to illuminate. In his world, silence carries weight, and the gaps he leaves behind speak louder than any argument ever could. He doesn't just walk away, he teaches through absence. Number 7, he cuts people. When they start editing his truth. The Sigma male has zero tolerance for anyone who tries to rewrite his reality. He doesn't seek approval, compliments, or reassurance. He seeks authenticity. When someone starts twisting his words, reshaping his intentions, or watering down his essence to fit their narrative, it triggers an immediate response. This isn't about ego, it's about self-preservation. He knows that once someone is allowed to manipulate his truth, it opens the door to control, influence, and energy theft, and he refuses to allow that under any circumstances. The Sigma doesn't argue endlessly or try to convince the other person. He doesn't negotiate with distortions or sugarcoat his reactions. He quietly assesses the damage, measures the intention behind the act, and makes a decisive move. Bridges don't just get burned for drama, they get erased to protect the integrity of his mind. For him, every thought, word, and idea is sacred, and any attempt to alter or exploit it is treated like a violation. This isn't paranoia, it's precision. The Sigma has seen how small edits, lies, or manipulations can accumulate over time, subtly shifting perception and undermining his reality. He knows that the person doing this is either unwilling or incapable of seeing him as he is, and once that boundary is crossed, he doesn't linger in frustration or hope for change. He removes access, cuts ties, and moves on, ensuring that his mental ecosystem remains uncontaminated. The brilliance of this approach is in its simplicity. By burning bridges with those who try to alter his truth, the Sigma preserves his energy, clarity, and identity. He understands that people who cannot honor him as he is have no place in his world. The act of cutting someone off is not cruelty, it's protection. It sends a clear message not just to the other person but to himself. Authenticity is non-negotiable, and anyone who can't respect that will be removed without hesitation. In a world full of manipulators and distorters, the Sigma male's refusal to compromise his truth becomes his ultimate strength. He doesn't just guard his mind, he eliminates anyone who dares to tamper with it. Number 8. He measures relationships by freedom, not time for the Sigma male. The value of a relationship isn't measured by its duration, but by the space it allows him to be fully himself. 10 years with someone who confines him, dictates his choices, or drains his energy holds far less worth than 10 days with someone who challenges him, inspires him, and allows him to breathe. He doesn't cling to history or sentimentality. He evaluates connections based on the freedom they provide to grow, evolve, and think without restraint. Time alone doesn't create loyalty, trust, or understanding. The Sigma sees many people trapped in long-standing relationships, convinced that longevity equals significance. He doesn't fall for that trap. Even if someone has been in his life for decades, whether family, mentors, or romantic partners, if their presence becomes limiting, controlling, or suffocating, he walks. For him, the quality of the connection far outweighs the quantity of years spent together. Freedom, in his view, is the ultimate currency. He values relationships that enhance his mind, expand his perspectives, and respect his boundaries. Those that turn into obligations, manipulations, or silent prisons are liabilities. By leaving, he isn't cruel. He's conscious. He preserves his autonomy above all else because he understands that without it, no relationship can be meaningful. This philosophy also allows him to avoid wasted energy. The Sigma doesn't invest in connections that demand compromise of his essence. He doesn't guilt himself for leaving or feel bound by social expectations. For him, walking away is an act of clarity, not drama. He prioritizes mental and emotional sovereignty over sentiment, proving that the strength of a bond lies in its ability to empower, not restrict. In the Sigma male's world, freedom defines the hierarchy of relationships. Time spent is irrelevant if it comes at the cost of independence. He surrounds himself with those who elevate him, and he discards anyone who diminishes his liberty. In doing so, he ensures every connection he keeps serves a purpose: growth, respect, and the unshakable freedom to remain fully himself. Number 9. He walks away the moment. Reciprocity turns into performance. The Sigma male has no patience for relationships that feel forced, transactional, or mechanical. He doesn't measure loyalty or connection by effort alone. He measures it by authenticity. When giving, receiving, or emotional exchange becomes a performance rather than a genuine act, he recognizes it instantly. A relationship should elevate both parties, not drain one while the other goes through motions. The moment effort loses its soul and becomes obligation, he disengages. He refuses to dim his fire to accommodate others' expectations. Many people stay in situations where they feel their energy is being consumed unfairly because of guilt, comfort, or fear of being alone. The Sigma doesn't operate that way. He'd rather step into solitude than continue to fuel a bond that compromises his vitality or reduces him to a performer. Loneliness, for him, is preferable to the exhaustion of pretending, pleasing, or compensating for someone else's lack of authenticity. This approach is rooted in a deep understanding of energy and balance. The Sigma knows that relationships are not debts to be repaid mechanically. They are ecosystems of mutual respect, care, and spontaneity. Once those elements vanish, the connection no longer serves life. It becomes a weight. He doesn't debate, beg, or negotiate to revive the spark. He removes himself quietly, preserving his clarity and protecting his essence. Walking away isn't dramatic or vengeful. It's practical, deliberate, and unemotional. The Sigma recognizes that allowing a one-sided or performative dynamic to persist only diminishes his influence, joy, and growth. By leaving, he reclaims his energy, maintains his integrity, and signals that authenticity is non-negotiable. For the Sigma male, the quality of effort is everything. A hollow performance is as destructive as outright betrayal. He doesn't linger in relationships that no longer feel alive or balanced. He walks away decisively, calmly, and without regret. Because protecting his fire is always more important than keeping others comfortable. Number 10. He burns bridges to stay unreachable, not bitter. The Sigma male doesn't burn bridges out of anger or spite. When he removes someone from his life, it isn't a vendetta, it's a deliberate act of self-preservation. People often misinterpret his detachment as coldness or indifference, but in reality, he's protecting something far more valuable than emotions, his mental ecosystem. He understands that not everyone deserves access to his thoughts, his growth, or the evolution of his mind. Some connections are simply incompatible with the level of clarity and focus he maintains, and keeping them alive would be toxic. Detachment for the Sigma is strategic. He doesn't linger in resentment or replay grudges. He simply closes doors quietly, preserving the energy needed to continue evolving. He recognizes that access is privilege, not a right. Once someone has shown themselves incapable of respecting his boundaries, maintaining their presence would only dilute his freedom and compromise his progression. He burns bridges not to punish, but to ensure that his mind remains uncontaminated by unnecessary interference, manipulation, or drama. This approach also allows him to remain unpredictable and untouchable. The Sigma knows that the world is full of people who feed off consistency and availability. By staying unreachable, he maintains control over his own space, time, and focus. It isn't bitterness, it's intelligence. He doesn't need to explain, apologize, or justify the absence. The act itself is a boundary that communicates his standards without words. Burning bridges in this way also protects the future. By removing toxic or limiting influences, he creates room for authentic connections that align with his evolution. It's not cruelty, it's cultivation. The Sigma male values his inner life more than social comfort, and he refuses to compromise it for those unwilling to meet him on equal terms. For him, detachment is empowerment. Bridges are burned to maintain unshakable focus, clarity, and independence. His absence isn't a message of hate. It's a declaration of sovereignty. He stays unreachable not because he's bitter, but because he values his evolution above all else. Number 11. He knows the price of staying is higher than the cost of leaving. The Sigma male doesn't weigh relationships or commitments by what he might lose if he leaves. He measures them by what he sacrifices if he stays. Most people fixate on the fear of departure, the lost comfort, lost companionship, or lost social approval. The Sigma sees that as a trap. He calculates differently. He tallies the toll a connection takes on his energy, his focus, and his mental clarity, and he is brutally honest about the results. When the cost of remaining outweighs any benefit, leaving becomes the obvious, logical choice. He doesn't act impulsively or emotionally. His exit is a decision made after careful observation and analysis. Every interaction is measured. Does this person elevate me, drain me, or merely occupy space? If the answer is anything less than alignment with his growth, the Sigma knows the true loss isn't in leaving. It's in staying. Time spent in a draining environment, energy poured into unreciprocated effort, and mental bandwidth wasted on managing toxicity all accumulate into a debt no man can afford to carry indefinitely. This perspective is what separates him from most. While others cling to relationships, places, or obligations out of guilt, habit, or fear, he views them as investments. If the ROI is negative, he cuts the tie decisively. He doesn't linger in excuses or sentimental reasoning. He moves on without looking back, fully aware that the exit preserves his autonomy, sanity, and potential. He also understands that staying too long in a toxic dynamic dulls his intuition and diminishes his power. Every compromised boundary chips away at his clarity and freedom. Walking away is not a failure, it is a strategic realignment, a choice to protect what truly matters, his mind, his focus, and his growth. For the Sigma male, departure is not loss, it is liberation. He calculates the cost of staying with precision, and when the math points to exit, he walks, calmly, confidently, and without hesitation. The price of remaining in the wrong place is far too high, and he refuses to pay it. Number 12. He burns bridges to remove emotional GPS trackers. The Sigma male values his independence more than anything, especially his emotional privacy. He understands that not all connections are built on trust. Some are built on quiet control. Every friendship, relationship, or social tie has the potential to become a form of surveillance, where people start monitoring his moods, habits, and decisions like emotional detectives. Once he senses that someone has stopped connecting with him genuinely and started tracking him, the bridge is already burning. It's not about disappearing for drama's sake. It's about reclaiming his autonomy from those who confuse closeness with control. People often mistake curiosity for care, but the Sigma can tell the difference. When someone becomes too invested in knowing his every thought or dissecting his silence, he sees it as emotional trespassing. He doesn't like being analyzed, decoded, or managed. To him, true connection means freedom, not supervision. So when someone begins mapping his emotions, predicting his moves, or trying to preempt his reactions, he withdraws. He doesn't explain. He vanishes from their emotional radar completely. This is how he maintains power over his inner world. The Sigma knows that constant emotional observation dulls authenticity. When people expect him to react a certain way, it limits his freedom to evolve and surprise. He refuses to be emotionally predictable or dependent. Burning the bridge removes the eyes watching his evolution and allows him to grow without commentary. It's not paranoia, it's precision. He knows that energy leaks through the people who always want updates, who always need to check in, not out of care, but to stay informed. The Sigma ends that access immediately. His privacy isn't secrecy, it's self-respect. By erasing those emotional GPS trackers, he keeps his movements, both physical and psychological, his own. To outsiders, his sudden silence may seem cold, but to him, it's a reset. A man cannot think freely if he's constantly being observed. The Sigma burns bridges not to hide, but to stay sovereign. His disappearance isn't avoidance. It's freedom reclaimed from emotional surveillance disguised as love. Conclusion. The Sigma male doesn't burn bridges for drama, revenge, or validation. Every cut, every departure, every silent withdrawal is deliberate, precise, and rooted in self-preservation. He understands that life is too short to maintain connections that drain, manipulate, or compromise his freedom and clarity. He measures relationships not by time, not by appearances, and certainly not by obligation. He measures them by authenticity, energy, and the space they allow him to evolve. When he walks away, it's never impulsive or reactive. It's strategic. Every burned bridge protects his mental ecosystem, preserves his independence, and reinforces the sovereignty of his mind. He knows the price of staying is often far greater than the cost of leaving, and he refuses to pay with his vitality. For the Sigma male, absence is a tool, boundaries are non-negotiable, and freedom is sacred. People may call him cold, distant, or detached, but in truth, he is disciplined, aware, and untouchable in his clarity. He doesn't linger on those who fail to meet his standards, and he doesn't look back with regret. Each connection removed is a lesson learned, a space cleared, and a step forward in his unrelenting journey of growth. To be a Sigma male is to understand the weight of energy, the value of authenticity, and the power of walking away without hesitation. He leaves no emotional breadcrumbs, no false hope, and no unfinished business, only a clear path forward for himself and the quiet awareness for others of what they lost by underestimating his boundaries. If you found this breakdown of the Sigma male's mindset revealing, make sure you don't miss out on more insights like this. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button to show your support, share this with someone who needs to understand the Sigma mind, and leave a comment with your thoughts, whether you've experienced this yourself or just want to dive deeper into what makes the Sigma male untouchable. Every view, every like, and every share helps us bring more clarity to the world of mind, energy, and unapologetic independence.